Hi, welcome to Preparing Our Workforce for the Skills of the Future. This is a recording that we're preparing for people that are interested in the topic and couldn't attend in our virtual session or are interested in listening to it again. So from LinkedIn CEO to HR analysts and leaders, there is so much content on this topic on the future of work and the shift to skills first approaches and how skills are changing in the workplace. A lot of the content is interesting. Sometimes it's terrifying, but not a lot of it is actionable. So what we are trying to do today is to cover the topic and provide actionable insights that you can take back to your organizations. There's a lot to cover, so let's dive in. First, let's define the future of work and this topic that we're talking about. So the future of work describes changes in how work is going to get done over the next decade. And these changes can be influenced by technology, generational changes, social shifts. Today, when we hear the term future of work, it typically elicits machines and how machines are displacing or working alongside people, AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning algorithms. And there is major changes happening in the workforce and how work is getting done and the future of work. In Dell's 2017 report on emerging technologies, impact on society and work, they predicted that 85% of jobs that will exist in 2030 didn't exist in 2017. And there seems to be a lot of truth in that prediction. Let's look at some more recent data and some more digestible data. So this was a report that came out in March by LinkedIn. They released their skills first vision for the future. And they reported that the skill sets for jobs have changed by around 25% since 2017. And by 2027, this number is expected to double. So really what's going on here is that even if your employees aren't changing jobs, their jobs are changing. LinkedIn members added 286 million skills to their skills profiles in 2021, which is up 22% from 2020. And the number of hirers using skills data to make hiring decisions has doubled from 20% to 40% in 2021. Most importantly, skills-based hires are 60% more likely to find a successful hire. So almost all organizations want to shift towards a skills-based approach, and a lot more are experimenting with it, but only in small pilot groups. So 98% of organizations have expressed that they want to shift to a skills-first approach. 90% of companies have started experimenting with it, but only 5% are experimenting across the entire organization. So all this is interesting, but let's understand what's happening and why this is happening now. First, let's situate ourselves in history. This anxiety and the questions around the role of machines and working alongside people is not a new idea. It's not a new anxiety. This idea and anxiety first emerged in the 1920s when machines were being introduced in manufacturing plants and workers' lines and in factories. And in fact, in 1928, there was a headline in the New York Times that read, "March of the Machines Make Idle Hands." And the subheading in the article was about how these labor-saving devices, meaning machines, would be the underlying cause for unemployment. But actually, the unemployment numbers didn't support that anxiety. Unemployment stayed relatively low during that period of time. And those same themes continue into today. And by the themes, I mean the anxiety, but our jobs actually not being displaced by machines. So in 2007, the World Economic Forum and Expert Economics predicted that over 45% of jobs would be eliminated due to automation. So the good news is that we got it wrong in terms of our predictions that people would be displaced by machines. Instead, what's actually happening is that jobs are changing, and arguably our jobs are changing for the better.
Awesome. So, let's talk a little bit about what's happening. And, Brene Brown discusses the evolution in the way you see on the slide, and I really, really like it. The economy has moved from needing physical strength to mental strength to emotional strength. And so, in the 1800s into the 1900s, we're in the industrial age. We needed people with that physical stamina and that dexterity. 1960s into 20 years ago, we're in the information age. We wanted the data scientists, that processing power and that mental intelligence. Today, we struggle with focus and we struggle with productivity, and we need workers and companies with empathy and who lead with heart. Our growth as individuals and as companies is really going to depend on our ability to not just understand, but accept this change that's taking place. So, what do the skills of the future look like? It may surprise some of you to learn that the technical skills are not going to be the skills that are hardest to recruit for. And actually, we're already starting to see this shift into these behavioral skills. So flexibility, adaptability, teamwork, ability to learn, these are the skills that are really becoming harder to hire for. And, the number one individual skill on LinkedIn right now is communication. And on one hand, it sounds surprising, but on the other hand, not so much. For some of us, when we were young, the way we'd communicate with our friends was the telephone or knocking on someone's door and asking them to come out and play. Then we moved into, I'll call it the pager era. I don't know about you guys, but I was able to have like full conversations with my friends with just numbers because I learned how to write numbers. But of course, you're using short forms of words and you're not using proper grammar. And then we moved to text messaging. We've got our like short forms, our LOLs, which I remember my dad thought meant lots of luck for about a year until we told him what it really meant. And now I just traveled with a friend, and her niece and nephew will only communicate with her via Snapchat. And so all this has caused a decline in our ability to communicate, making it a skill that needs much more focus to master. And what's the bad news? We aren't ready for everything that's happening. We have a societal problem. We have not historically taken a skills-based approach. We've only been thinking of jobs in terms of job titles, not the actual skills that make up those job titles. And I'd say we've even moved towards writing salesy job descriptions rather than job descriptions that talk about what we need someone to do. We haven't been watching how these skills trends are changing for the roles in our organization or the roles that may come up in our organization. We have not been training and upskilling our people. We're behind, and we're at the risk of having jobs without people and people without jobs. Why aren't people shifting to a skills-based approach? It seems pretty obvious. Do we not know that the shift is happening? I think to an extent that may be true. There's so much information out there. I don't know how anyone could possibly read it all. And even if you are reading it all, I don't know how you're digesting what you should listen to and what you shouldn't listen to. Is it that we fail to understand this data that's available? What I'm finding from what I'm reading is there's a lot of great information out there. There's not a lot of information on how to action it within our companies. And, maybe we lack understanding of how to connect the skills data to the business outcomes, which is certainly true because it's new and it hasn't really been done before. But I honestly don't think any of these are the main blocker why companies aren't making this shift. The main reason is it's hard. Where do you start? How do you link it to business outcomes? How do you prioritize? This is not a small change. We've never fully understood the skills of our workforce, and we've never had tools available to help. This is not simply making a hire in learning and development and hoping for the best. It's not even just a mindset and process shift for HR and business leaders. It's a full shift in how we do business. And so let's dive in a little bit deeper. What this means for the future is that we have to learn on the job. we're already at a point where 94% of business leaders said they expect their employees to pick up skills on the job. And this seems like it's great news because, if you match this with the fact that the number one reason individuals left their job in the last year is lack of development, seems like this is a marriage for happy employees and happy companies, but this isn't what's happening. Why isn't it happening? It's because we still have this disconnect between what the business needs and what the employees are taking training for so that they can actually develop. So, where do we go from here? We need a new operating model, which is the skills-based organization. And all of that, of course, starts with the skills profile. And how do we build skills profiles? You may be thinking, oh, well, the job description is a skills profile because it has the skills that we hired someone for. The truth is, while we know what we hired someone to do, we don't actually know what they can do. And this is fundamentally flawed, especially because we get skills in so many different places. I think it's very obvious that you get skills from job experience, probably also obvious that you get skills from education and learning. But I think where a lot of us are missing is skills coming from volunteering and life experience. Volunteer work is a great way to get experience, especially early on in your career or when you're making a career move that maybe you can't get hired to do. And what I love about the skills that come from volunteer work is someone was passionate enough to go out and find a place that they could gain these skills. They're going to be so happy if they can use these skills in the business. With life experience, not everyone has access to the same things. And if we really want to be a diverse and inclusive society, we need to let people bring their whole selves to work. And we go through so much in our lives. Maybe it's immigrating to a new country, raising a family, overcoming an addiction. Maybe we built up a big following on TikTok. We learn skills from all these experiences. And why wouldn't we want our employees to be able to bring everything they have to offer to the table? I think that companies that focus on all four of these are companies that are going to win, especially in the coming months and years. So how do we get skills data? It's not Excel, no surprise, but let's talk about it because I chat with a lot of people who are trying to do this in Excel. Number one, it's time consuming. I've done this myself. It's a mess and it takes a long time. By the time you're done, it's already out of date because people have learned new skills on the job or they've taken a training course. Often it's done through people leaders and, your leaders entering skills about their team members in Excel is not going to work. They don't know skills someone has before they join their team, before they join the company, what they're doing outside of work. And so you're really never going to get that full skill set. It's also really hard to digest. You have to be able to interpret and use the data. When it's in Excel, it's messy. People often aren't using the same words or the same skills. So it doesn't all work together. And I get it. Tools are hard to sell. You've got to sell them to finance, into leadership. And so let's dive in a bit deeper into the benefits of this and how you're going to be able to sell it. So I already talked about this slide. What do we do with skills profiles? So number one, ensure that you have an efficient deployment of your workforce and that you're doing it in an equitable way. When these projects pop up, they're going to take, let's say, a week or two, or, a new piece of work pops up that maybe is going to take 10 to 20% of someone's time. We used to maybe outsource this, or, hey, let's just hire a new person because, we've got the budget. Well, gone are the days when companies brag about their big headcounts. Now we're expected to be lean and we're expected to be efficient. So with the skills profile, you can go in, type what you need, and your employee database, because it's now searchable based on skills, will surface the people you have in your company who can do this work. This is also a more equitable and inclusive way to give out work. what I've noticed in a lot of companies I've worked at is it's the same 2 or 3 people that get all this work that pops up. And aside from the fact you may be overloading some of these top performers, there are other people who are fantastic employees that want this work. It's exposure to new ideas. It's working with leadership. It's getting to work with different teams. These are great ways to develop your career, and you want to make sure that these opportunities are being given out equitably. We've done a whole presentation on this one. I think it's super important. Most companies are allocating a training budget per employee. Hey, here's $1,000 a year. Go take whatever you want. That's all, nice, but let's be clear, that is a lifestyle perk. That is not a development perk. And as we learned earlier, lack of development is the #1 reason people are leaving their companies. The way most businesses are doing it now is someone goes out, they do a course, maybe they take a certificate, they can come back. Of course, they want to use those skills. That's how you really develop. But often the company doesn't have the need for an employee to use those skills. What you can do with skills data, especially once you've collected the ambitions of the employees, is you can actually link the goals of the employees to the needs of the business so that you grow together. This is the absolute best way of doing it, and I think one of the main benefits of the skills profile, although I admit I'm biased and I love them all. Next is mentor matching. Mentorship and coaching are free development tools, except for the fact that they're often not free to implement and can actually be very expensive to implement. And they're also time consuming for the person on your team who's running the program. Once you've already got a platform for skills data, this is often one of the things that can be done automated and really easily at no extra cost to what you're already doing. And what I love about mentor matching and coaching is it's not only the person being coached or mentored who's learning something, it's also the person who's doing the mentoring. You learn great leadership skills, and of course, you feel good about yourself and you feel accomplished in your role, which leads to happier employees, which is what we all want. Very closely related is, empowering your teams to work together. How many times do you get stuck on something so small? Like you're used to using Excel, but now you're using Google Sheets and you can't figure out how to do that, like one little thing. So you spend hours Googling, watching videos, can't find the right thing until enter, your skills profile. You go in, who's an expert in Google Sheets, find someone, quick Slack conversation, maybe a quick video chat, and you're on your way. You're not wasting those 2 hours. So really important is you can understand the skills for success and hire more of them. Hiring is hard, and knowing what makes someone successful in a role is even harder. With skills profiles, pull up your top performers in a role, compare side by side, identify which skills are creating success, build your next job description around that, and hire towards these skills that are successful in the role. This presentation is really focused on the internal employees. Don't forget, skills profiles equally important and valuable when you hire. This is another one. At Tiller, we truly believe that everyone can succeed in their roles if companies set them up for success and invest in them. Sometimes someone may be performing lower because we failed to do this. And so what you can do is pull up your low performer, pull up a couple of your higher performers, and identify which skills they may be missing to succeed in that role. Or maybe they're so far off that instead of giving them the skills for that role, there's actually somewhere else in the business where this person would be more successful. Finally, career pathways. Jobs are changing. They're changing, your employees feel they're changing. At the same time as their jobs are changing, people are now seeking meaning from work. And companies, we're all trying to lead with heart. We also need our employees to deliver. So this is where career pathways come in. A career pathway is a series of carefully designed development steps from secondments to training to mentorship that take someone from their current role, which is potentially disappearing, to a new role that is upcoming and potentially more challenging for them in a good way, and also hopefully it pays more. Okay, so now you know what you need to do. So how do you sell buying a platform to your leadership team? So moving to a skills first approach is going to result in improved retention. Employees want to develop, you're developing them, improved retention saves money because you are hiring less people. It's a more equitable and inclusive workforce. We've talked about that. That's something we are all trying to achieve. The ability to link employee goals to company needs. Not only does this create more happiness through your workforce and more efficient training dollars, I think you actually can save so much money in your training dollars that you can afford a tool like Tillers so that you can actually bring this strategy forward. You also have the reduction in outsourcing tasks or hiring extra headcount that won't be at capacity because your workforce is now deployed efficiently. So again, we've got a cost savings here. And, really important is the ability to ensure that the business, company you're working for has the skills it needs to remain competitive as the skills for jobs change. And this is our workshop for today, getting it done quickly for you. It was a lot of information, pretty fast. Because we recorded this, because our recording didn't work the first time, we'll miss out on the great questions that got asked at the end of this. But if you have questions of your own, our emails and LinkedIn's are there. We would love to connect with you. And more importantly, if you're interested in a product demo and using our product, we'd love to chat. Have a nice day.